All right, Tom here. Just getting set up. And we're going to see how many people we attract here live. I told people we'd set up around 7. I'm a little bit late because I'm still learning how to do this. And also, I'm trying to watch this. Okay, so what do we got? Oh, let's see. So that was, what age did I start flipping? Okay, I started flipping at age 19. It's actually the first video. If you look at the first video I've got on this channel, you'll see that I kind of talk about how I just kind of fell into my first deal. All right, cool. All right, great, man. Thanks. I got Eli and Moises. So Moises, I started at 19. And that's why I know anybody can start. You know, I never finished high school. I got a GED when I was 16 or 17, and I went to work. I actually went to work in construction. Just my first job was picking up rocks and throwing them in the bucket of a tractor. And then I worked for a company setting up trailers for a little while, and then I worked. Then I went to work in a cabinet shop, and ultimately I started a cabinet shop. So we got Eli here. Eli, yeah, glad to have you here. Ty's a good friend, and he's also a good mentor. I don't really do the one-on-one mentoring, but I try to share as much as I can, the way I can, through video, and that's kind of what I'm doing with this. No, flipping, it'll be generational money for my kids, but it won't be for me. My folks weren't even able to buy a house really probably until they were in their 40s, to be honest. Great folks, great parents. My parents split. I was raised mostly by my father, and we lived in a trailer for a long time, for a while. You know, we were together as a family in a house, and you know how divorces go. But anyways, had a great childhood, had a lot of fun. Not a lot of money, but we had a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm glad to see. It seems like I got a lot of young guys interested in this, and you know, time flies. You know, I still feel young, and I still enjoy myself pretty well. But man, it's never too late to start. If you're just getting rolling, your life can change a lot. Like I say, just in the last 4 months, that lake house, I'm probably going to make, you know, a couple $100,000 on that house for sure. I thought it was just going to be 100, but you know, I bought it without even seeing it. You know, I agreed to buy it, and then today you'll see the video that comes out tomorrow. You know, I got a call. I don't know if you look at my video from, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago. I was talking about staying on point, staying focused, and keeping in touch. Was the last video, and I was talking about how I text realtors that I've done business with in the past, or people that I know that are connected somehow to property. And you know, I did that run, and you know, sure enough, somebody called me back, said, "Hey Tom, I got a property we're going to do an auction on." And then yesterday's video, I kind of explained how to, you know, kind of a strategy to defeat that auction setting, and I did it, It worked beautifully. And this property I picked up today, I held off releasing that video that I let out this morning. I held it off on it because I didn't want to let it out until I had a signed deal. Because you know, you'll see these productions on TV where they meet the realtor and they walk through the house and they make the deal. Well, that isn't how it happens. They're paying full retail, and they're putting a bunch of money, and then they're reselling the house for about what they have in it. To be honest, doesn't look like anybody's making any money to me. But in the real world, the way it happens is, man, you just jump when there's something pops up. You got to be the first one there, and like I say, I tell everybody, you got to take time to build your knowledge base. So I mean, I look at all this property around my home, and I look at property around my work, and I look at everything in between. Or if there's a neighborhood maybe that just extends a little bit further than my work, or a little bit past my home, you know, between my home and work. I'll go drive it. I'll look at it. Or if something that has me interested, I drive through and I learn about the properties and I look at what's for sale and I see what's sold and I make a mental note. Hey, that's sold for, whatever. This house I just bought this morning, and I'm going to close it this Friday. Now, I paid all cash for it, and I know not everybody can do that, but it doesn't matter. Just being the first one there is everything. And I got mosquitoes out here. So, listen, you're going to need a little bit of money. You need to put a down payment, or not a down payment, but a deposit, and that can just be a couple $100. Or sometimes, if you have to, if you really got something that's a great deal and you got to write a check for $5,000, but there's $100,000 sitting there, write that check for $5,000 and explain to them they have to hold it while you transfer some funds, and then go find somebody like me or somebody else that has some money, and they'll go in with you. Now, ideally, it's somebody that's like in your neighborhood, somebody that can recognize a good deal. And so if you guys look, you'll see in some of my earlier videos, I talk about the first property I bought. I was 19 years old, and it was just kind of a no-brainer. I had a cabinet shop. I needed to move out of the shop that I was in because I was renting, and I was actually kind of on hard times, and I was kind of living in my building. And my landlord found out, and he said, "Hey, Tom, this place is going to catch on fire, and you're going to get killed, and I'm going to get sued." And then I started looking in the paper, and I started looking at buildings for rent, and then I come across this guy that was renting the building that belonged to my old boss. And so I'm like, "Hey, I used to work here," when we pulled up in his car, and he said, "Oh, really?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I went back to the my boss had defaulted and lost the property, and it went back to the original owners. So they were in a position to carry a note, and that was my introduction to owner financing. And so my the agent, Bob Dennis, he explains to me owner financing. Now, keep in mind, I'm 19. I got hair down to here. I was a nice guy, but I had allergies, and I looked like I was stoned all the time. I didn't sound like it. I was a pretty smart guy, I think, but I thought, how am I going to buy it? I said, "Look at me." And he says, "Nah, don't worry." He goes, "We'll write a contract," and he goes, "We'll make it owner financed." And he goes, "Do you have $10,000?" I says, "Well, can we get some time? From the time I move in, I could save it in 6 months." And so what we did is we structured the deal that I would move into the property, or not move into the property. I just said, I want a 6-month look, and that, I put probably $500 down, but I agreed that I would buy it, and with $10,000 down, and then they would carry a note. Well, I didn't have the $10,000, so I moved into the property. Immediately, I had a cabinet shop I was going, so now I was rent-free. But instead of paying the rent to somebody, I just saved that money until I got to that point. At the end of 6 months, I scraped together $10,000. I put that down, and now I owned it. And I remember being very broke, but I owned it. It was mine. I had my teeth were in it. It's mine. And it was shortly after I bought that first building that I got somebody came up, and there was still a for sale sign on it, and they saw the lights on, and they said, "Hey, what's up?" And they said, "How much is the building?" And I said, "Well, I just bought it." And he said, "Well, what'd you pay for it?" And I told him. He says, "Well, I'll give you $20,000 more than you paid for it." And so, of course, my eyes get big, and I'm like, "Man, that's awesome." And but I didn't want to sell it because I was moved in. I had big dreams of having a big cabinet shop, and but I realized I made $20,000. That's what I felt like. I made $20,000, even though I was broke. I knew that I had somebody give me $20,000 more for it than what I paid for it. So after I got in, I began looking at more and more deals. And so I see who we got here. Frodo, good to see you. MJ, yes, son. Thanks for coming in, son, and watching. My adopted YouTube son, MJ. So what do I do for a living? I'm an investor. So dope. You said, what do I do for a living? I'm an investor. I've been an investor since I was 19. So let me tell you how I became like a full-time investor. I own this cabinet shop. From the time I started that building, or I moved into that building, I started a cabinet shop. Well, after about 9 years, over that 9 years time being in the cabinet business, and it's a rough business. It's not an easy one to make money in. And I didn't make a lot of money, but I made a living, but I had free time. In other words, We didn't have really cell phones. I had a cell phone that was as big as a lunchbox back then, if you can imagine that. But I had a pager, and I had I had actually like a walkie-talkie, but not really what you'd call a phone. I had a phone that you would dial and you'd call, and then you'd push a button to talk, and you'd release to listen. That's what you call like a full duplex walkie-talkie, or anyways, long story short, it was a rough-looking cell phone. But I had free time, and I would make the rounds, and I'd talk to agents, and I had a cards made up that said, I buy homes under 50,000. And they'd just laugh, and they'd say, yeah, well, doesn't everybody? And I'd say, well, hey, if you got a deal that you would like to buy, but you can't afford it, you call me, and at least you'll make a commission. And so that's what I did, and I started flipping homes after I bought that first building. And if you watch my earlier videos, I go into great detail on it, and how I took in partners and that sort of thing. And really, it's really is about finding the deal. So I don't care if you're young or old, have money or don't have money, because what matters is getting the deal. It's like even this little property I found today. If say one of you guys that doesn't have much money, or if it was me, years ago when I didn't, I would have tied this property up, and I would have found somebody locally that has money, and I would have said, hey, let's be partners. And they would have said, hey, okay, that sounds good. Or they would have said, how about I give you 10 grand and you just get out of the way and I'll buy it without you. And that would have been fine too. So instead of making 70 grand a day like I did, I would have made 10, which would have been fine. Sorry, I got dogs. Hey, quiet. So anyways, let me look at some of these questions. Anybody got any questions? So I got somebody working at a sandwich shop, Frodo, getting a sweet marketing job. That's good. Hey, you know what? It's always great to do what you like. If you can do something, and you got more freedom than I did, guys, because I would have to rely on, I had a fax machine, so I could sign deals and flip. Not flip, but I could, I could sign contracts. I could do, the fax machine just came out. That was like what a cell phone is today, or what the iPhone is today. It was just amazing. You could sign contracts and make deals, with a scan. And so now we take it for granted, but it was kind of a big thing when I first got going. And so Moises is asking again about generational money. If you mean, did I have inherited wealth? No, I do not have inherited wealth. In fact, I actually, as I've gotten older, I've taken care of my parents in the ways that I can. And it's pretty cool. It's nice to be able to do that. In fact, I have 4 kids, and I got a girl in Prague, Europe right now. She's studying abroad, something I never even could have imagined for myself when I was younger. Okay. So Moises asks, flipping or generational money, as in rent the property for life. Okay, I got you. I see where you're going. Look, I'm not married to any property forever. Never. Okay? So it's all business. When I buy something, I buy with the intention of making a profit. Now, as I accumulate more and more cash, then I go, okay, now I have some options. I can buy something and hold it if I want. Okay, so yeah, I have commercial buildings like, restaurant, bar, I got all kinds of tenants. I got a nuclear physicist. I have offices. I have like what we call flex, kind of something between office and industrial, or light industrial, where people are like putting together circuit boards. I have all kinds of property of different kinds. And I like the diversity. More and more, like I worry on my retail properties. I kind of like restaurants. I like schools. I like services. I like things that Amazon can't destroy or hurt, because keep in mind right now, Amazon is killing the retail. If you watch the news and watch CNBC sometimes, or pick up a Wall Street Journal, and just read a little bit, and you'd be surprised what you learn about the world, or about at least your economy. Amazon is killing business. Now, I own some manufacturing companies too. And so I see firsthand from my manufacturing how Amazon is killing a lot of us, or China's killing us because our government they let the stuff come in here nearly for free with no taxes, and anything I try to ship overseas they tax the hell out of it. So that's another story, maybe for another channel someday. But the bottom line is, buying property to hold is kind of a privilege. And then, like land particularly, land is not a game for really. I mean, you can flip it. Don't be discouraged from flipping it. I flipped a ton of land. I mean, probably 100 lots. Probably about 100. I know at least I did 64 in one particular little area. And that's fine. Just don't get over your head. You don't want to be in a position where you can't handle a downturn. And so, like, if you can buy a lot for 10 grand that's worth 20 or 25, go ahead and buy it. If you can buy it with $5,000 down, buy it, and then when you resell it for 25, let somebody give you $5,000 or $10,000 down. Let them assume the first that's in place for $5,000, and then you carry a note for $15,000. And then after that, after a year of receiving payments on that note, that's what you call a seasoned notes. And this is another business you can get into. When you start carrying property all the time, you can, you'll have notes. And after somebody's made payments reliably for a year, that's what you call a seasoned note. And you can sell that note for maybe full face value. Like, in other words, if it's a $10,000 note with 10% interest or 5% interest, you can sell it, or maybe you'll discount it a little bit. So anyhow, let me get to questions here. Okay, so there. Amazon seller yourself. Well, back to Amazon. Amazon is killing retail because people are using the stores in their local area as kind of a way to go look at the product. Then they order on Amazon at a greater discount and no tax. Well, now they have tax, but it used to be no tax over state lines. So my point where I was going with that is I'm careful with my retail. I try to have tenants that aren't susceptible to being wiped out by Amazon. And I mean, all the big box stores are starting to really hurt. Like Target, Best Buy, all these companies are hurting. Cabela, I forget. There's some big sporting company, like Cabela's, but not Cabela's. One like that just went under. Some outdoor type thing. But anyways, from what I talked to some of the management, they said Amazon killed them, just killed them. And so you're going to see a lot of this big box retail stuff just disappear because everybody's ordering direct from Amazon. I do it too. I can order a light for my TV set, and I can order protein powder, whatever. So it's very convenient. So you got to be careful on your rentals and what kind of tenants you want to have in there. So I look for tenants that can't be damaged by that type of business. When you buy a commercial building, do you already have a tenant in mind? If you're starting from ground zero, how do you find a tenant? Well, when you're starting from ground zero, you probably should just more worry about flipping and building up cash. If you don't really have the money to deal with a downturn, sometimes going into a rental is not the easiest thing. And I'm not saying you can't. If you can buy something cheap and you can hold on to it, maybe you got a job or whatever, you hold it and get somebody in there paying you rent, and then that's a wash. It's taking care of itself, and maybe the market's appreciating, and that works for you too. But I had an old friend of mine, and he always said, he was an old fireman, and he said, you can never get hurt taking a profit. And his point was, don't hold out for every cent, because sometimes you're holding out for the deal to fail or for the economy to go down, where if you can just flip it, maybe there's 50,000 sitting on the table there if you could hold it, but maybe there's 25 you can get right now cash. And so you're done with the deal, and now you got 25,000 cash or whatever it is. You can't get hurt taking that 25,000. You may kind of resent and wish you had the rest of it, but you got 25 cash. That's a good place to be. So that's my thoughts on if you're starting from ground zero, just take a profit, build up, build your nest egg. That's your seed capital. Get some cash together, because cash is a major tool in this business. Just get your money, save it up, and then pretty soon you'll have this chunk of money. It could be 50 grand, 20 grand, whatever, relative to your neighborhood and what you're buying. Doesn't really matter. But then you go buy something, and you still got maybe $10,000, $15,000 cash in the bank, then you go ahead and buy something and then rent it. Go ahead and rent it, and maybe it'll appreciate. But you can afford to do it now because you got 15,000 sitting in the bank to help cover you through hard times if there's a vacancy and that sort of thing. And that's how you kind of build your empire. That's how I've done it. So let me keep going these questions. Tony says, what are your thoughts on residential property? I'm stuck with a tenant who hasn't paid May's rent, and now we are heading into June. Man, just evict him. I mean, get the eviction process started immediately. You really got to train tenants. I don't particularly like, I know some residents are worse than others. I have a lot of high-end rentals, so those people, they can hold over too, but in general, they pay their rent. But I'm kind of like, if somebody gets behind, a week, we send them I have management, I have software I'll tell you guys about later, and they get a notice saying, hey, pay up, and I charge them for the late fees. You got to make it sting. You got to train them that, hey, we're watching you. We're watching you. If they get behind, if they get behind a week, say, hey, when's that rent coming in? The next week, hey, I need my money, or, I'm going to have to, hit you for late fee, and I'm going to have to give you you can do a thing called pay rent or quit. You can do a lockout notice. You can actually go there and lock them out of their building or their property, or your property that they rent. And then they got to call you up to get in, and when they get out and they leave, lock it up behind them again. And I don't love doing that kind of stuff, but that is an option when you got a bad tenant that's a residence. And believe me, I've had some bad ones. I had some drug dealers in one of my apartment buildings, and they were talking to kids, and that was it. I had to get rid of those guys, and I did. But so let's see what else we got. So land contracts are the way to go. I'm not saying anything is the way to go. Look, like I was explaining a week or two ago, I got a pretty good chunk of cash. I'd like to put $300,000 or $400,000 down, and I'd like to buy another building to hold, like a commercial building, maybe 20, 30,000 square feet. That's what I'd like to buy right now, or maybe a higher end commercial property that maybe is 8 to 10,000 feet, but rents for more, of course. But while I'm waiting for that deal to come along that I haven't been able to find, and I've been looking all the time, I still have this cash. And so what do? I'm also looking at houses that are a great deal. And so I just got one this morning. And so I'm taking 160,000 of my 300,000 cash that I have sitting in the bank, and I'm going to buy this house, pay cash for it this week, and then I'm probably going to throw another 30,000 into it. So there's 190 of my, 300,000 or 400,000 sitting there that I've used now. Well, I still continue to look for a building. I'm still looking for a building, or I'm looking for another house to buy for another, 150,000, 200,000. And I'll flip these, or I'll hold these and I'll sell one of the other houses that I've held for more than a year, because you get taxed heavier on property that you sell within a year's time than you do a property that you've held for a while. So what I may do is I have a house that's probably worth $500,000 now. I paid $105,000 for it. It's about time I get rid of that thing. So I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll hold this house that I just bought today, and I'll sell that other one that I bought, quite a few years ago. And it was actually when I was going to convert to commercial, and I'll sell it, and I'll hold on to that cash. So let me see. Gander Mountain. Yes, thank you, El Camacho. That is the name I was thinking of. Gander Mountain. It says, I think I was talking about a store, a big outdoor store that was going out of business, and attributed to eBay, or not eBay, but Amazon. And yeah, Gander Mountain is what I was thinking of. Thanks. So Frodo, not sure what it's like in your area, but in Washington State, we have a squatter's right, and it can be very difficult to evict, from what I've heard. Well, just get on it. Get on it in court, because when you get before a judge, they understand that you got a mortgage to pay, and don't think they're gonna, I don't know enough about your area, but if you just don't rent it, just buy something and flip. If you're afraid of it, then don't touch it. Anything you don't really like or you're concerned about, don't touch it. But you can't get hurt flipping it, Buy it under market. It's that simple. People say, how do you do it? I said, man, it's just math. If it's worth $5, I pay $3, and then I sell it for $4. just flip it, and put that cash in your pocket. And then pretty soon you'll have enough cash in the bank. You can go pay cash for something or buy something, and then you got this nest egg of cash to carry you through, a squatter or whatever other problem you might end up having someday. So let me keep going through these questions. So, so it doesn't really matter what state you're in. Things are on fire one area, and things are $30,000 houses here, $150,000, $500,000 houses over here. It's all relative. You're buying based on what it's worth, so you can flip it. So it doesn't really matter. So Moises, what do you got? It says, what's the amount you would rent out a 10,000 square foot commercial building in your area? Okay, it depends. And I invest in more than one area, but let me put it this way. In California, the taxes are like 1.2% on your real estate. In a state like Texas and New Jersey, it's like 3.2. So it's 3 times higher. So let's say that 10,000 square foot property cost $1 million. Okay, well, the taxes on that yearly are going to be $30,000 a year in Texas. In California, they're only going to be about $12,000 per year. So I can accept less rent in California for that building than I could in Texas, because of the damn taxes are so high in Texas. So you have to factor that in. Other things is when you say a 10,000 square foot building, if you have multiple tenants and you have one electric meter, then the landlord's paying the electric, then you got to factor in and charge them more. But the bottom line is, if I'm going to buy something, say, that's worth $1 million, it really doesn't matter what the square footage is. If something's worth $1 million or $100,000, I expect, if I'm going to be my aggressive, in like what I would say in a beginner's mode, I want to make 15-20%, at least. Now, in my status now, where I got more money and it's easier, I might be comfortable for a long-term hold that I might buy a building like that, and I'd be happy just to get 10% coming in. And so we'll call that a 10 cap. And what that means is, if you paid cash for that, $1 million, on a 10 cap, you would expect to, after all expenses, have $100,000 a year coming in, or 10%. Now, some people, I see properties will say, oh, I'm selling it at a 10 cap. Well, they're selling it at a 10 cap with the assumption that it's going to be rented all year long, all the time. Well, I always factor in a 10% vacancy rate on anything I buy. So when somebody says there's a 10 cap, I'll say, well, I'll take it with a 10 cap, but I'll also take another 10 off for vacancy, because things do go vacant. So to me, what would be a 20 cap to some people is a 10 cap to me. So let's go with the rest of these questions. So let's see. In Michigan, police can't even remove squatters. Owners try to bribe them with money. Yeah, well, you know what? Every area is a little bit different. And I know Michigan, has got some really depressed properties over there. So, if something like that, just if you're going to buy it subject to them kicking the squatters out, or something. You can kind of make it miserable. You can also take the door off a property. You can take the windows out of a property if you have to. I'm not suggesting you do that, but if a window's gone, it's going to be harder to hang out. So, anyhow, what else we got? I know there's a lot of people. Okay, yeah. So, anyways, anybody got any other questions? Making money any particular way? Land, contracts, strategies? What are your fears? So, dope, what do I do for a living? I live on rents, dude. That's what I do. I live on my rents. Okay, so Camacho, let's see, it's called, oh yeah, never mind. All right, I'm scrolling through here, trying to get to it here. Oh, so Khalid, you're afraid of a bad deal. Well, listen, people will say, "Oh, Tom, you got balls." It's not that I got balls. I just got brains. It's just math. It's just math. I mean, think about this. This is what I always is I think it's a decent analogy. When you go to buy a car, or you go to buy a table, or whatever you're going to go buy for yourself, you shop a little bit, right? You look at the retail store in town. You maybe look at the paper. You look online. You see what Amazon charges. You see maybe you can get one new or used for on eBay. So you start shopping and shopping and shopping, and then you start figuring out what the price is, what the bottom is, right? You figure out what the bottom price is, okay? And then you go, okay, I know this is a fair deal because nobody's going to sell it cheaper than this. So now you've got a basis of what the value of that product is. It's the same thing with real estate. You look and you look and you look and you figure out what's the bottom dollar that something's worth, okay? Then you try to buy it for less than that so that you can resell it for that bottom dollar in the worst case scenario, or maybe you sell it for a little bit more. So if you say if you fear of a bad deal, if you do your research and build your knowledge base, then you'll know a good deal as soon as you see it. Like I say, if you're looking at tables or whatever you're looking at, you'll know if everybody, the cheapest you see them is whatever, $100, and then all of a sudden you run into a hardship sale and somebody's selling one for 50. You're not even going to blink. You'll say, I'll take it, because you've already done your research. You've figured out what things are worth, and then you'll take it. And then now you got something for 50% off. That's how it works. And listen, if you've got that kind of fear, Khalid, don't start with real estate. Start with something smaller that you feel comfortable with. If you guys look at some of my videos, you'll see I've bought things that I didn't even know what the heck they were when I bought them. I'm talking about devices that I had a screen projector. It could be forklift, it could be a chain, it could be anything that's of value. Then you can resell it for more. And so if you are not ready to step into the world of real estate, that's fine. I get it, but just start. Start small. If you can buy something for $1,000 and sell it for $2,000, I mean, that's 100% profit, and that's easy to do with goods, with things. You can do that. Not as easy to do with real estate, but with real estate, you're leveraging such a big ticket item. You make up for it, because of it's such a big ticket item. But so that's what I would tell you to do, is just start with things if you're not comfortable with real estate at this point. So let me see, Frodo, do you have any ideas for a 17-year-old? Same thing, Frodo, man. Just start reading. You're watching these videos. That's a good start. But I mean, look for something. I don't know what you do, but you probably know what's a good deal on whatever it is you do know about, and start looking at those things that you know about, so that you can just start flipping things. Okay, it's flip anything, right? Ultimately, you want to get to real estate because that's the big bucks. But before that, it could be cars, motorcycles, it could be anything smaller. Okay, so what else we got here? Okay, Matthew, my fear is buying something with too many problems and it turns into a bad deal. Do you just plan for the worst and assume plumbing, electrical is bad? No, I mean, listen, when you're going to buy something, just do your due diligence. I mean, go run the water, make sure it drains, talk to the people that lived there before if you can. I mean, I'm a pretty handy guy. I don't need anybody to inspect anything for me, and I can tell you, this house I just bought today, I just looked, the roof is shot, the drywall's bad in some places. Yeah, I understand that, the drain might be plugged. I might spend a couple $100 on, cleaning the drains out. So I factor that in, that there's going to be work to do. But if you got a margin of, 25-30% profit on you're going to make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, you can kind of go, oh, there's 10 grand in there to take care of things if it goes bad, or or just say there's 10% in there, relative to the deal that you're buying. But you have to do your due diligence, and in fact, if like on a laundry room, you can always go grab a hose, plug it into the faucet outside, stick it in the drain of the laundry, turn the water on full blast, and see if it can handle, the water without overflowing if you're worried about a plug or a leak. But you'll see things that'll give you that kind of impression, and turn on the water, run it in the sinks for 10 minutes while you're walking around the house, and look for a problem and see if there is a problem. Just kind of common sense stuff. You gotta look and make sure that you gotta make sure there's no holes in the roof and all that sort of thing. Or if there is, make sure that you're buying it cheap enough you can cover that stuff. If you don't really know what a roof costs, then call a roofing company and say, hey, what's a composition roof, on a house cost to replace, how much a square, meaning 100 by 100, that's a square, 100 by 100, I'm sorry, or 10 by 10, it's 100 square feet. So, and you'll learn, and the more you learn, the better it'll get for you. So, let's see, what else? All right, so we're starting to run out of some questions here. Yeah, I've run into Matthew, I've seen some bad plumbing problems too. If you look at the lake house, I just had to replace the pump on the, it cost me $4,400, but it's okay. The money was in there to cover it. But when you're dealing with a little tighter margin, you're just going to have to do a little more due diligence and really look at the property a little, scrutinize it a little harder, make sure there aren't any problems. I actually got a brother-in-law that wants me to help him buy a property in Lewiston, Idaho, and the houses he's looking at were built in 1900. They're over 100 years old. And I'm like, man, are you going to be able to afford a problem if this thing breaks? Because 110 years old, I'm pretty sure the plumbing probably is bad. So you just never know. But so let's talk about, let's talk about some, let's see. It looks like everybody here is kind of pretty much at the beginner level. Just start with things if you're not comfortable. If you don't have much money right now, then just start flipping smaller stuff. Find things that are small. I like small and valuable. Maybe you're living in an apartment or whatever. Small and valuable is cool because you could fill your closet with small stuff. Just think about like a diamond ring. Not that you want to get in diamond rings, but maybe, you could have $1 million worth of rings in a box this big. I don't know diamonds and I don't know gold, so that's not my forte. But if something's valuable and small, it could be a camera or who knows what, then you've got room to inventory it. If you're going to buy and sell forklifts, that's a big heavy thing. You need trucks to transport those things back and forth. And cars, you have to register them, and the title stuff you have to deal with. So that's not all easy to do. And I'm not discouraging you from it, but if you don't have to mess with title, things are probably a good way to go for you. So you got another one? A lot of people are saying you can buy properties with little or no money down. Wholesaling lease options. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze here. So what people call wholesaling, I see a lot, and Ty, if you don't know Ty, Flip Man, this guy seems to know it as good or better than anybody. I know he'll do a lot of creative deals where, he'll put together where he's tying up a property with no money and trying to get somebody else to buy it, and so you got somebody going to look at somebody's property that somebody else lives in, and the landlord has to be there, the real owner, and it sounds like it's a little bit of work. It does sound like some work. My idea of wholesaling is I buy stuff super cheap and I flip it quickly, so I sell it a little bit below market. I'm not afraid to put a deposit down. I even when I was younger and I didn't have a lot of money, I could certainly seem to scrape together $500 to put down, or I'd find a friend that had money. And I suggest that's what you do. If you want to try to tie up something with zero money and flip it to somebody else, you're really making it hard on yourself. You're setting the bar pretty high. I think it's more reasonable to think that, you can find a great deal, you can write a check for a deposit, and then get 30 days to go find somebody or go find some money. Like I said, in my efforts, when I found a property that was bigger than I could afford to handle, and I'm only talking about a $120,000 deal, 30 years ago, I went to my old boss, who I knew had money, and I said, "Hey, boss, John," I go, "Man, I got this property. It's a great deal, and I need a partner, and we'll make a lot of money." And he went and looked at it, and he said, "Tom, this is a good deal." He goes, "This is a really good deal." He goes, "But I don't want a partner." And he says, "How about I give you $20,000 and I just buy it by myself?" And I said, "Man, that's like a great idea. I never even thought about that." And that was my introduction to what you would call wholesaling, I would call flipping. And what he did is I bought it and I just assigned that contract to him. And so, just very simply, I assigned the contract to him, and he took over the contract. And he bought it, closed it, and made a lot of money. And I made a little bit of money, but I made $20,000, in a week. I probably made more money in less time than he did overall. So let's see. I bought some pretty good deals at the tax foreclosure auctions here. Yeah, I've been to some tax sales. I really haven't bought much, or haven't bought anything, to be honest, at a tax. One of the things I don't like is that the tax sales that I've seen, you can buy it, and then they have 30 days to come back and recover the property if it doesn't go through. And so I'm not really crazy about that. But and the other problem you have when the economy is kind of good, if you go to a tax sale, the people that are bidding on those a lot of times are people that intend to move in and live in that house, and they'll pay more than I would as an investor trying to flip and make money. So I really think that there's enough deals out there. If you can just be the first person there, you can knock out a deal. You can get something signed that will suit you very, very well, and it'll make you some money. And I've already done it twice since I started this blog, 4 months or whatever it's been. And so it's kind of nice that I'm able to prove it to you and show you that those deals are out there. And I'm trying to do it as live action as I can. That's why it's pretty rough with my video. But you understand. I know you guys get it. It's real, and it is real. So what else we got? Traditional financing, private lending, which is good for what? What do you use when not using it? Well, if I'm going to buy a big commercial building, I just know I put 20% down or 25% as an investor. Sometimes if you occupy the building, then you can get in with 20%. You have to put at least 25% down as an investor if you're going to rent to other people. They also like it if part of the building's rented. If as you grow and you become more substantial, they really don't. They have a lot of respect for you. The bottom line is, I can go to the bank and they'll they know by my reputation that they've seen what I've done already. I just keep buying and buying, and I keep them rented, and I keep them full, and I keep making money. So they know, they see my net worth growing, and that's the other thing. As you grow, you'll be interested to know that as you grow your empire, right now you guys, they run your Social Security number, and they look at your credit score. When you get at my level, they'll assign you what's called like a high net. I think it's like a high net worth banker, and they kind of cater to you, and they don't really care about your credit score, to be honest. They care. Don't get me wrong. They look at all the commercial loans that I have, and I pay everything on time, of course, but they don't get caught up in if I didn't pay if there's a medical bill, and there's things that'll happen, like the more property you own, the more electric bills that you'll show that you didn't pay, or things will happen. Bills get lost in the mail on apartment buildings. Used to happen all the time. Every time a tenant would move out, the bill would revert to me, the landlord, and then I'd have a 30-day late or a 60-day late. Well, the bankers at the commercial level, they don't care about any of that stuff. If you're borrowing on a house, then they go, "Oh, wait, what's this?" So then you got to write a dispute letter, and I remember those days. I dispute this for this reason and this reason, and they just want you to explain it away. Unless you're just defaulting on loans, if they see you pay your loans, that's really all that most of the banks ever really care about. That's what they mostly look at. But anyways, I don't know if that answers your question or not. So what else we got? Yeah, so private lending, it just depends. I don't care where the money comes from. I'll give you an example. I was in Starbucks. This is about 2 years ago, and I was kind of thin on money, And I had a friend of mine that actually I knew he had some money, and I said, hey, you know what, you want to loan me 100 grand? I'll give you 4% interest on it. And he said, sure. And so and while I made that deal with him, I said, okay, I'll have it written up. I was sitting in a Starbucks, and one of my lawyers comes in, and I see my lawyer, and I said, hey, John, do me a favor, write me up a note today for 100 grand, promissory note. I'm going to pay this guy back, borrowing 100 grand, 4%, and I'm going to pay him back in 6 months. And he said, okay. And then he starts to walk out, and he comes. He said, "Tom," he goes, "do you need any money?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll borrow more. I'll borrow more." And he said, "How much you need?" And I said, "Man, I'll take 500 grand if you got it." And he says, "I might have it." And so, and then I think actually he thought about it a minute, and he goes, "Yeah, I think I can do that." He goes, "Let me double check it." He goes, "You want to go ahead and do that today too?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll take 500 grand from you too." He goes, 4%. I said, "You got it." And so, in that brief exchange of me telling my lawyer I wanted him to write up a note for 100 grand for me to borrow from somebody I know, he just loaned me $500,000 on the spot. And so I borrowed that. So when I went back that afternoon to get the original $100,000 note I was having him create, I picked up a check for $500,000 from him on that note. Out, go. And then what's funny is I paid on that note for 2 years, and then when I just bought this lake house, I didn't even tell you guys this yet. When I bought this lake house, I talked to my lawyer, and he's my friend. I say his lawyer, but it's lawyer and my friend. And I said, "Hey," I said, "you got any money burned away?" He goes, "Well, I might have a little bit." And I says, "Well, I bought this lake house," and he goes, "Oh, okay." He goes, well, and so I borrowed 100%. I said, "Yeah, go ahead and give me 100 grand for that." Or actually 80 grand, because I paid 80 grand for that. So I bought that lake house with no money down, nothing. I just paid 80 grand that I borrowed 100% of. But again, that's based on the reputation that he knows me, he knows I can do it. And you guys will get there too. You'll get there. Just start buying and selling and use your head. You can't just throw money out the door. You got to think, and you want to think, but it's just math. And you'll start making money, and you'll build your seed capital, and then pretty soon, people will respect you at the bank, and people that you do business with, and like I say, finding the money is easy. So what else we got here? On your commercial properties, how do you structure the tenant improvement funds for new build-outs? Do you borrow from the bank based on their lease? No, I've never borrowed money for a tenant build-out ever. What I do is, it's all negotiable. If they're going to take a longer lease and I feel real good about them, I always make them pay for their own tenant improvements, but I might get it done for cost for them. I've got a crew, I've got people, I've got, a lot of contractors that work for me. So I can pretty much, the people that I call to do the job will get it done right away, so there's no time lost. And also, I'm very quick pay. I pay people as soon as they're done. So I know who all the good guys are in the trades, and I get it done quickly and reasonably, at a reasonable price. So I'd never finance it, and I would never go borrow money to do tenant improvements. I would just never do it. They're renting. They can walk. I'm not gonna borrow money to decorate a store for somebody that could go out of business 3 months later. So yeah, my advice to you is never pay for anybody's tenant improvements. You can maybe give them a break, give them a bit of a deal, or let them pay for all of it, and maybe give them a break on rent. If you want to give them a little bit of a deal, say, "Oh, well, we'll just cut your rent down a little bit," and that'll be my way of helping you pay for your tenant improvements. Okay, so what else we got here? Pamela Dawn, let's see, been there, Tim. Just got to push through, listen to some, motivation music. Okay, I'm not sure what that is, Pamela. I think you're talking to somebody else, but it sounds like good advice either way. So anyways, I'm not sure how long we've been on, but I guess it's 48 minutes. We'll maybe give it another 10 if you want, or we'll close it out now. Any other questions, or is there anything you want to hear about? All right. Well, I think everybody's starting to burn out, maybe. So, anyways, this was our first our first real live stream, and we'll see how it goes. I appreciate everybody participating. Got one more question. Khalid wrote, how is your property management setup? I'll tell you quickly, I don't particularly love managing some of my houses, so I have a management company do it. I'm not always happy with them. I think I do a better job, but you can't do everything. Then my commercial properties and industrial properties and offices, I do those. They're not hard. You get a lease, you sign it up, and it's good for years. And every once in a while, all of a sudden, I see I got 10 leases to renew, and I just get on it. But really, it's kind of easy just to simply create a lease extension. That's a one-page document. Lease extension. Maybe you bump the rent up a little bit, and you say same all terms of the original lease are in force, except for the following change, and that is probably the rent goes up, or something like that. So, pretty easy. Let's see. Oh yeah, 2 hours. I don't know about that, MJ, but we'll make up for it down the week. I don't think I'm good for more than another 10 minutes. So, how's the lake house coming? It's going great. Let me tell you what's happening. It's really pretty much done. All the popcorn scraped off the ceilings. It's been retextured and repainted, and it's perfect. It's beautiful. I'll probably hold it for at least a year, unless I'm trying to do more things with my twin boys that are 13, and I'm trying to find things that I can do with my kids, like golf, which I used to golf a long time ago. Wasn't very good at it, but so I'm thinking about joining the country club, teaching my boys golf, just so I have something to do with them as I become an old man. Because I'm running out of options, So I'm looking for things like fishing, and so the lake house will provide, a place to go fish, and so I'm looking at, I'm just kind of looking at things like that. So I may hold the lake house longer if I think it'll help my boys want to spend time with me. Okay. So you say, why hold it? Well, because it's a lake house, and it only takes, I think I timed it, less than 2 minutes to walk from the front door and to dive into the water. And so and the other reason is I'll pay less taxes. Your capital gains, you pay more if you sell something within a year. If you wait and go beyond a year or more, when you sell it, you'll pay a little less taxes as well. Actually, quite a bit less. So that's another reason to hold it. Now, again, if I hold this lake house for a year, I am taking a chance of the market going down. But I can afford to deal with it if it turns into a downturn. If you're somebody that can't really afford to deal with the downturn, then best thing to do is flip it. Just flip it, take your money, and you'll be happy. So I got another question here. Residential properties, have you ever found any good deals on the MLS? Yeah. Usually when it hits the MLS, everybody's diving on it. But I have got some really good deals, but it's only because I'm like watching the MLS. I'm the first one there. Now, there are situations where somebody will put a property on the MLS and they'll put it for way more than it's worth. And so people look at it and they get discouraged and they just kind of get tired of looking at it. And then after 2 or 3 months, the seller thinks, I need money. And then he does a drastic cut. And he cuts a bunch off of it. And then you look for that cut, and boom, you're the first one there, and then maybe you take another 10, 20 grand off of what he reduced it from, and it's a decent deal, That can happen. Because a lot of people, I'll give you a perfect example. This is recent. I had a guy, 8,000 square foot building. Next to that 8,000 square foot building was a duplex, 2-story duplex. Next to that 2-story duplex was a house. All this stuff could be commercial, but the house and the duplex was being used residentially. Well, I'd been talking to him about buying the 8,000 square foot from him, and he kind of wanted a little bit too much, more than it was worth. But we went back and forth, and I've been staying in touch with him. And then all of a sudden, I was surprised he didn't call me to talk to me about buying it. He puts it on the MLS, and I see the picture of it, and I said, yeah, he still wants $1 million. That's too much. I was wrong. What he did is he put it up for $1 million, but this time he included the duplex and the house with it. but it appeared it was just the same 8,000 square foot building, but he went ahead and added these two items that were contiguous to it and threw it in for the same price, and now it was a great deal. And so now it kills me because there's a guy that owns it that he's actually somebody I know and like, and I've sold him some properties. But I'm a little bit pissed because I'm supposed to be the guy that, doesn't let any of those deals slip by. So I always take it hard when I lose something because I feel like that stuff shouldn't get by me. So anyhow, let's see what other questions we got here. Oh, listen, Pamela, I've been using I'm a contractor. I've been building homes and buildings for many years. Don't do it all the time. I used to be more active 20, 30 years ago. But so me finding contractors is easy. I got my own crew. I can do just about everything you can imagine. Bigger texture jobs. I want a better machine than what we play with. Or I just need more manpower. If I need framers and that sort of thing, I'll hire a crew. But yeah, so but if you're looking for contractors and you're not as invested in that type of thing as I am, then what you need to do is you need to check their credentials. Look for references. You just got to have references. You can probably use Angie's List for all I know. I've never used Angie's List, but you need something to make sure you can qualify the people that come work for you. And never give a contractor, never pay them in advance. I don't even say give them a deposit. Maybe give them a little deposit if you have to, because they're not necessarily going to trust you that you can pay your bills either. So you'll find a medium in there somewhere, but stuff like that is interesting. Okay, so Gregory Poole. Okay, great answer on the tenant improvements. Good, glad you like that. That's how I do it. Where I'm at, most tenants need or want an allowance for improvements that will convey with the space after they leave. You have a great way of, yeah. No, listen, just remember, and I tell everybody this, and it's the truth, and you want to get there, and I tell anybody that I'm buying from the same thing, is you test sincerity with the wallet, right? You test sincerity. If somebody's got money, you say, okay, show it. Now, that doesn't work for everybody here that doesn't have money, and I used to be that guy. But I would say, okay, I'll write you a check right now. And then I would explain how I need to transfer funds, which meant I got to go find the money. But you test sincerity with the wallet. And, if you got a tenant, if they can't afford their tenant improvements, they're not a very successful company. Just, they're not, So there's no reason for you to invest in somebody's company. You're in the business of renting property, not doing tenant improvements for free. So, but anyhow, I appreciate your response. Thanks. Okay, so good. Yeah, Tony, glad you like it. Yep, good. Yep, I like sharing it. It's good, and like I say, someday I hope the boys will be watching this stuff. So I guess we'll wrap it up. I really appreciate you guys, popping in, and maybe we'll just go ahead and do this Wednesdays at 7. I know Ty Flipman, he's a friend of mine. He does his Thursdays at 7. So I don't want to compete with Ty. So maybe we'll try to do this. I don't know if I'm going to do it next Wednesday. Maybe I'm going to be on vacation, but I do plan on doing some more live stuff like this, just to share some thoughts. Actually, I'll be kicking around an area in Los Angeles where I actually used to own a beach house. So who knows? Maybe we'll look at some beach properties. I actually have my eye on one. I was there just a couple days ago. And I am looking at buying something over there, and I just haven't figured out quite what. But anyways, primarily, and here's something, this might be interesting to you. I've got a pretty cool little drone. I'm thinking about flying a drone taking off in my neighborhood, actually where I live, taking off, and I can fly that path. I think I can fly it all the way from my home neighborhood all the way to my work. And what you'll be blown away by is you'll see all these properties that I own all around my home, and then I'll fly down. They kind of get thinner and thinner in between, and then as I get closer to my building, my factory, you see that I start buying more and more buildings around that, because it goes to what I was saying. You buy around the area that you're around the most. So drive around your neighborhood, drive back and forth in between. Sometimes you'll find a little offshoot street between where you live and where you work. Drive down that street. There are so many things that sometimes you're not even aware of. I've got a neighborhood that is just beautiful. I just bought this house. it's I didn't even realize that this little neighborhood has so many amenities that even my own neighborhood, and I'm talking about like a walking trail, a little lake where you can fish, and I mean little stuff, that the little creek that I didn't even know was there, and then greens that walk into, like, where there's a big soccer club for kids, but it's, huge dedicated property. But people can, I mean, it's like having a gigantic park that you can walk through, and that is an amenity to the property, and it's valuable. And then, also schools. Don't underestimate the value of school. To people that want to buy a property, schools are very important to them. Everybody cares about their kids. So getting a good property where there's a very respected school is also, it's an asset. So keep that in mind as well. And hey guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Sounds like everybody can hear me well. And so we'll do it again here maybe tomorrow. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I really do appreciate you, taking time to watch and share and ask questions. And I'm trying to build this thing up, so please share. And if you can, put it in front of other people that are like-minded, please do it. And we'll get more people in here, and it helps motivate me too. I like that, but I appreciate you listening in. I really want everybody to enjoy the same kind of lifestyle I've had. It's just been a blast. I mean, I've had good times and hard times, but everybody has that, right? But one thing is that I enjoy what I do, and you'll. It's just nice. It's a good fun lifestyle. So anyhow, that's it for now. Flip Anything USA. Everyone have a good night. Thank you.